But when you cruise as much as I do, it starts to feel like exciting new experiences in cruising are behind you. However, on my recent cruise on board Utopia of the Seas, the newest ship from Royal Caribbean, I was amazed at all the new experiences that were available on board that ship, and I was just amazed in general at the sheer size of that ship. But I was shocked by cruising with 6,000 people. Was it too crowded? Well, I'm going to tell you all about that and more in my complete review of my cruise experience on board Utopia of the Seas. Hello everyone, my name is Zach. I am the Traveling Man and I love to take cruises, and if you love to take cruises, I invite you to go down below and hit that subscribe button. This time I'm bringing you a review of a cruise ship like I've never been on before. Until just the other day, I had never been on one of Royal Caribbean's mega ships, and a large reason for that was because I was kind of terrified at the size of them for one, but also the crowds. I don't like a big crowd. I like a smaller size cruise ship, a mid-sized cruise ship. I like a quieter vibe on a cruise ship, and all I saw when I saw these big mega ships was a party and 7,000 people potentially. But what was the vibe really like on board Utopia of the Seas? Well, first of all, I want to tell you that I had a fantastic time on this cruise. It was a fantastic experience that exceeded any expectation that I had for it. And I'm going to tell you all about that cruise experience, and how I'm going to do that is through my steps process. And there are 5 steps to this. It is an acronym. It's how I critique every cruise ship here on my channel. And the first S of steps stands for ship. We'll talk all about Utopia of the Seas, and I'll tell you what the vibe of the ship was like. Was it too crowded? The T is for taste. We'll talk about food. The E is for entertainment. The P is for ports, and I'll tell you about the ports that we stopped on this 3-day cruise. However, I'm going to give a rating for each element, but for ports, we're not going to count that rating toward the final rating at the end. So the overall rating that I'll give Utopia of the Seas won't account for ports. And then the second S stands for service. So we're going to jump right on in with that first S, the ship, the Utopia of the Seas. And the first thing I have to say about Utopia of the Seas is the thing that I kept saying the most throughout the cruise, and that is wow. I was blown away by Utopia of the Seas. And not only is this the newest ship from Royal Caribbean, but she's also the second largest cruise ship in the entire world. But I just could not believe the ship, how big it was, all the different neighborhoods. There's so many distinct neighborhoods on board the ship. You've got the boardwalk in the back of the ship. You've got the Royal Promenade there on deck 5. It's where you enter the ship. It's where you leave the ship. It's kind of the heart of the ship, the heart of entertainment. You have Entertainment Place down on deck 4, which is the entrance to the theater. It's also the home of Studio B, which is an ice skating rink on board the ship. It's also the home of the Attic, which is a smaller venue for things like comedy. Then you have the Central Park area. Central Park area is an actual park on board a mega cruise ship, and it was my favorite area on the entire ship. I absolutely love Central Park. As often as I could be, I was out there just enjoying, taking in the quiet, serene ambiance, unless they're having a deck party. If they're having a deck party up on deck 16, forget it, because that music was filtered down in there. Really loved the distinct neighborhoods on board the ship. Really love how they help control the crowds through having all those different neighborhoods. It felt like an actual city, and I've said that a lot about cruise ships. You know, oh, they're floating cities. It feels like you're at a city at sea. But it truly felt like that at Utopia of the Seas, because you could get lost in those neighborhoods. And in addition to all the neighborhoods, all the eateries that they have on board the ship. I don't think I've ever seen more restaurants on board a cruise ship before. I also love the vibrant colors and the art all over the ship. Just everywhere you look, something was catching your eye. And I think that's what makes this ship so attractive, is they have splash color everywhere. It's just a feast for the eyes when you look around Utopia of the Seas. Another thing that I really loved about the ship were the elevators, because the elevators were on a system where you walked up to this little, I'll call it an iPad, it was a tablet, and you basically just selected, like, I'm going to deck 15. You selected 15, and it would assign you an elevator. It would tell you to go wait in an elevator. And that elevator would come get you. You get in the elevator, you don't have to press another button. It cues you once you get inside of there, though, with anybody else that might be in the elevator. So you can actually look and see, okay, we're going to stop at deck 9 and deck 11 on our way to deck 15. Really, really cool. I really like that. Another way that they manage the crowds on board the ship. I had an inside stateroom for this sailing because I paid, in full transparency, about $1,700 for that interior stateroom for a 3-night cruise. So I was going for as cheap as I could get. I didn't necessarily need a balcony. I love to have a balcony on a cruise, but there were far more things to see on this cruise than just the ocean. So I was fine having an interior stateroom. It was a very nice stateroom. Another thing about my stateroom, because it was in like the middle of the ship, I never felt the ship moving. Like, I couldn't even tell the ship was moving. I had to go on my cruise mapper app to see if we were still moving or maneuvering in port or what. I couldn't feel any rumbles or vibrations from the engines. I was staying on deck 11, by the way. Near the front too, but I couldn't feel any vibrations from engines or from anchors being dropped or from anything. Like I could never tell we were moving. And pretty much it was the same thing over the entire ship. We traveled over 700 miles on this ship, and no matter where I was, I couldn't tell we were moving because the ship is that big. You just can't feel motion. One of the only negatives, I guess I would have to say about Utopia of the Seas, and this isn't a critique at all, it's just something that I noticed, is if you're someone who likes to sit and have stunning views of the ocean and watch the ocean go by and look at the ocean throughout the day, you're not going to find many places to do that on Utopia of the Seas. In fact, just about the only places to see the ocean were some of the upper decks. You could sit in the solarium on the very front of the ship. The solarium was very beautiful, by the way. Or you could look off at the main pool deck or in the back of the ship off of the main pool deck and see the ocean. But then it's way down there. Like you're looking way, way down because you're 16 decks up at that point. The only deck I was able to find where you could actually get up close and personal with the ocean was deck 5. They actually have an outdoor promenade there. It's a walking track. Now, most of that is enclosed inside of the hull of the ship, but they did have one area of windows where you could sit. Still not open, though, but you could sit and watch the ocean. And then at the very back of that promenade on deck 5, it was open and exposed. You could go back there and look off and see the ocean, but not a lot of places to view the ocean. But again, you're in a floating city. It's kind of enclosed. So if you really want good ocean views, you want to make sure that you get an ocean view balcony. That's my recommendation to you. Otherwise, you're not going to get many views of the ocean on your cruise. So the big question we want to answer here, and the big question that many people were asking me in my comments and on Instagram, if you're not following me on Instagram, I encourage you to do that, was, does it feel crowded? This doesn't look like it's for me. It looks too crowded. There's way too many people. And I will tell you with 100% honesty, because that's all I ever am on my channel, it was not crowded at all. I never, not once, did I feel like this is crowded. I'm having to wait in a long line. There really was only one line that I saw that was like an actual line, like wasn't moving. And that was for El Loco Fresh, which is the Mexican buffet up on the main pool deck. I think it's just because it's a self-service buffet and it's so popular, but that's the only line I saw the entire 3 days I was on board the ship. Again, because of all the neighborhoods that they have and all the distinct varied locations around the ship, I mean, they really do a great job of dispersing people throughout Utopia of the Seas, from top to bottom, front to back. They've really got people moved around doing different things at different times of the day. It does not feel crowded. So if that's your concern, like it was mine for so long, because these Oasis series ships have been out since 2009, so they're like 16 years old now. Please don't worry. If that's the only thing holding you back, book the cruise and go. I promise you, you won't feel crowded. You won't feel like there are too many people, because all 7,000 of those people are not going to be in the same place at the same time. They're dispersed about the ship, and you will have a great time, and it will not feel crowded. I promise you that. So for all those things put together, I'm going to give the stunning Utopia of the Seas a 4.8 out of a 5 rating. Next up is the T for taste or food. First thing I'll say is I've never seen more dining venues on a ship. It makes sense though, right? A mega ship with over 2,400 staterooms and up to 7,000 people sailing on it, they have to have a lot of food offerings, right? So many food offerings, so many complimentary food offerings, but also so many specialty dining options as well. So if you're someone who likes to have a good specialty meal on board a cruise ship, Utopia of the Seas is certainly for you, because there were just as many specialty restaurants as there were complimentary eateries. And I cannot even tell you about all the eateries, because I maybe got to go to like 1/16 of all the eateries on board the ship. Just a very few, just a handful, just a select, because I was only on a 3-day sailing, and I really think you would need at least 2 weeks to explore all the dining on the ship and all that this ship has to offer. It's just so much. One of the things I was instantly impressed about food on this ship though is the Windjammer Cafe. Windjammer is the main buffet on board the ship, and the very first day, embarkation day, I marched right in there to see what they had. They had so much seafood on that buffet, and premium seafood at that. It wasn't just peel and eat shrimp. I mean, they had shrimp cocktail, they had ceviche, they had lobster tails. Yes, y'all, lobster tails. And they weren't limited on them either. You could walk up and say, I want, 5 of those lobster tails, and they would have piled them on your plate. I went up without even asking. They gave me 3. I mean, they just were really generous with the seafood that they were given. A very, very extravagant seafood buffet. I still can't believe it that they were having so much seafood on the very first day of the cruise. Also on embarkation day, I went to a brunch at Mason Jar. Mason Jar is one of the specialty restaurants on board the ship, and it has a southern flair. It's a southern restaurant. Think kind of like a Cracker Barrel, something like that. They offer brunch on embarkation day, and then they offer dinner every night of the cruise. But I went to the brunch. It was $42 after service fees and taxes and all that stuff. And I enjoyed the food that I had. I had a chicken sandwich, which was delicious. It was Nashville hot chicken sandwich. And then another thing I really liked about that meal was the dessert. I had the maple candied bacon ice cream, which was delicious. So really enjoyed that, but not sure it was worth the $42. I think it could have been just a little bit cheaper for the brunch, but the food was delicious regardless. The next day I had breakfast at Johnny Rockets. Now this was a free offering. Johnny Rockets is typically, if you go there for lunch or dinner, it's a specialty restaurant. It's an upcharge basically. You have to pay for those hamburgers and milkshakes that they have in there, but they do have breakfast in there and it is included, and it's a different menu. It's not like a buffet or any offerings like you're gonna get on the buffet. It's more like a diner. It's think like a Waffle House or Huddle House or something like that. And I really enjoyed the food that I had there. The only negative experience though was there was a little bit of lipstick remnants on the coffee cup that I had. So I feel like they could do a little bit better at washing their dishes. But other than that, a fantastic experience for breakfast at Johnny Rockets. And right next to Johnny Rockets on the boardwalk was Boardwalk Hot Dogs. And this was complimentary eatery. It's included, not an upcharge. But they had a selection of different hot dogs, just a basic hot dog. They had a bratwurst, several other things. They had several toppings. They had some coleslaw and potato salad. And I got one day just to try it. And you could try it on a regular bun or an everything bun. I got an everything bun with a bratwurst, with some sauerkraut, some toppings, and then some sides. And I thought this is going to be basic. It's just going to be like Lido deck, pull deck, hamburger hot dog type thing, right? Y'all, I was wrong. It was delicious. I really enjoyed it. It tastes like something you would pay extra for, but it was included, so don't miss out if you're going. Make sure you go get you a hot dog back there at Boardwalk Hot Dogs because they're really good. I also really enjoyed Sorrento's. Sorrento's is there on the Royal Promenade on deck 5, right in the middle of the action, and it is the pizzeria. It's open until, I think, 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning, so you can eat there just about any time of the day. And I really enjoyed the pizza that I got. I got 3 slices of pepperoni one day and really enjoyed that. And I really loved all of the grab and go options around the ship. There is one place up on the pool deck. It's actually new to Utopia. It's called the Spare Tire, and the Spare Tire was like a food truck concept, but they have grab and go things. You could just grab a little burrito. I think they had like a raspberry cheesecake chimichanga like thing. They had a couple sandwiches, but they're all packaged. So you could grab that, take it back to your room for later. You could take it to another part of the ship. Also Park Cafe in Central Park, it was sort of the same thing. In the mornings they had packaged muesli, and they had packaged oatmeal, and they had packaged fruit. Things that you could get, take back to your stateroom, enjoy it later, or take to a different part of the ship and enjoy. And that's another way that they're controlling crowds because everyone's not grabbing their food and eating it in Central Park. Now, the only bad experience that I had with food on board the ship was Solarium Bistro. Solarium Bistro is an extension of the buffet for breakfast and lunch, and I knew that. But for dinner, I saw that it's complimentary. It's included. You can go to Solarium Bistro, and I saw the menu that they had, and I'm like, oh, this looks like good offerings. But when I went there for dinner, I was a little disappointed. I found that it's still just an extension of the buffet, even for dinner, because all those menu items were just on a buffet, and you could just go pick what you wanted. Now, they did have servers that would come to the table, unlike the buffet, and refill your drinks or bring you drinks or anything. But all the food you got up and went to a buffet and got. And the food was all lukewarm. The food was different. You know, it wasn't like the typical stuff. They had like fried calamari, which you don't usually see on the buffet. So got me some fried calamari, and it was chewy and almost inedible. I didn't like that. I also got some salmon, and that was also lukewarm and just not good. So I was kind of disappointed with my experience at Solarium Bistro. But pretty much everywhere else around the ship, I had a fantastic experience with food. And there are so many options for food. There's so much I still didn't try. But for food, I'm going to give it a solid rating of a 4.0 out of a 5. Next up is the E for entertainment, and y'all, entertainment galore. I mean, this ship is big. That's the theme of this video, really. This review is big. And entertainment was big because there was entertainment all over that ship every minute of this 3-day cruise. They're calling these short cruises on Utopia the biggest weekend on Earth, and it certainly is. That's because they're jam-packing every minute with entertainment like I'd never seen before on a cruise ship. And there are some shows on Utopia like you'll never see again on any other cruise ship. Started out the first evening going to Name That Tune, which is a take on the old television game show, and really enjoyed that. I mean, I went in there with, you know, medium expectations. I'm like, it'll be whatever, but it's guest participation. They got guests from the audience to come up and participate. Had so much fun. The cruise director hosted that, and she was incredible. Another show I really enjoyed was the ice skating show, and Utopia is what that was called, which is held in Studio B, an actual ice skating rink on board a cruise ship. I just couldn't believe all of the figure skating that they did while the ship was moving. It was incredible. But my favorite show on board the ship was the Aqua 82, and that is the aqua show that they put on at the Aqua Theater on the very back of the ship in the boardwalk. And y'all, this was fantastic. This is like something you just don't see on cruise ships. It was insane what they were doing. It's all aqua themed, of course, so there's a pool there. So most of the dancing and the performing went on in actual water, but they also have divers there, and they were doing high dives, extremely high dives. I'm putting in some clips here so you can see how amazing this was. Again, on a moving ship, they're doing this show. It was an incredible show. The audience ate it up. I mean, audience roaring like I've never heard before at a show. So that is one of the highlights of the cruise. That is a must-do if you're sailing on board Utopia of the Seas. And I'm going to warn you here, if you are sailing on board Utopia of the Seas or any of her mega sisters, you want to make sure that you make your reservations as far in advance as you can. I know they open those up 90 or 120 days, something like that. You'll have to go and check with Royal Caribbean on exactly when those shows open up. But you want to make your reservations as soon as you can, because these shows fill up very quickly. Don't wait until you get on board, because there's not going to be reservations available. But I made my reservations for all the shows I wanted to go to before I got on the ship. And then if you don't have reservations, they actually open up a standby line, so they get as many people as possible into the shows, which I thought was really cool. But make your reservations as far in advance as you can for the shows, or you risk not getting in. They also had comedians on board, which they have adult comedy every night. But in addition to all of the shows that they had, they also had a myriad of parties, deck parties, all types of live entertainment. I mean, there was live music all over the ship, but they had a deck party planned for just about every day, and I'm talking multiple times a day. So of course, during the day, they would have a deck party, but also at night, they had some sort of themed party on board, usually late at night too. Some nights they had like a special themed club night in the Studio B, which is where they hold Utopia ice skating. There was just always something going on. It was amazing how many events, though. I've never seen more events planned on board a cruise ship. And the thing about the entertainment was there was a lot of it, big in quantity, but also big in quality, and really, really enjoyed it. And that's why I'm giving entertainment a score I don't think I've ever given a cruise ship before. That's how blown away I was. That's how insane the entertainment was on board Utopia of the Seas. It was larger than life. It was bigger than anything you've experienced before. And that's why I'm giving it a perfect 5 out of a 5 rating. The next up is P for ports. And again, I'll talk about ports, but I won't actually count the rating toward the final rating for Utopia. But the ports for this cruise, this 3-day weekend getaway, we left from Port Canaveral and headed down to Nassau. We spent the day in Nassau, and then we went over to Perfect Day at CocoCay. Perfect Day at CocoCay is one of my favorite places in the entire Bahamas/Caribbean. I love going there. It is, of course, Royal Caribbean's private island experience. And in my opinion, they've done it right. It's perfect. And it's a great getaway itinerary. If you just want to go somewhere for the weekend, if you want to go to the Bahamas for the weekend, this is perfect. However, the ship is in and of itself a destination, or at least it was for me. I actually didn't get off the ship in Nassau at all. And I only got off in Perfect Day for just a bit to walk around and tour, just to kind of stretch my legs a bit and sit on one of those hammocks that they got over on Chill Island. And one thing I'll say about Perfect Day at CocoCay is it's perfect for this ship because it's colorful in and of itself. There's just color everywhere. As soon as you pull up in that port, you see the huge water slide there in the middle. You see all the signage and everything. So the colors of Perfect Day at CocoCay perfectly match the colors inside of Utopia of the Seas. The vibe matches the vibe on board the ship. So it's almost like an extension. It's like a beach day extension of Utopia of the Seas. So for those reasons, I'm going to give ports a 4 out of 5 rating, which counts for nothing. Oh, and while we're talking about ports, let me tell you about something really cool. And actually, I'm going to throw up the map here and show you. This is from my friends at the Cruise Maps. This is called the Cruise Globe, and it's a digital product that they have. It's actually free. You don't have to pay anything for it. You just have to go on and make an account. They can log every cruise that you've been on and put it on a map. And actually, they can put all the cruises together on a map, so you can really see how crazy you've gone with cruises, as I have. But I'm going to put a link down in the description so you can go access the Cruise Globe for yourself. I think it's really cool. The first thing I do when I get off a cruise now is go enter that cruise into the Cruise Globe and pull up the map so I can see exactly where we went. And they actually used archive satellite tracking so that they can get the exact track of your cruise ship. So really cool. And this video is not sponsored or anything. I just wanted to mention that because it's something really cool that I think you would enjoy. And lastly, we come to that second S for service. And you know, you'd have to be kind of skeptical about service on a mega ship, where crew is literally expected to wait on up to 7,000 people at a time. I had concerns about that. I'm like, man, this is kind of worrying me. Like, what's service going to be like on a mega ship with all these people? But service on Utopia of the Seas was near perfect. I had no negative experiences. There were no long waits for anything. No food, no drink, no anything on board the ship. There was no long wait. It felt like they had crew everywhere, around every turn. There was plenty of crew to meet all the people on board. So again, don't worry about the crowd size and don't worry about the service lacking because of all the people, because the service was tremendous. It was more than tremendous. It was perfect. And that's why I'm giving service, the only thing I can, a 5 out of a 5 rating. So when we figure all those ratings together, except for the P for ports, we get a solid rating of a 4.7 out of a 5 for Utopia of the Seas. And that is now tied for the #1 cruise experience that I've had. It ties Celebrity Beyond and Norwegian Prima. But actually, when I remove the ports, when I make all things equal and remove the ports from Prima's rating, actually Prima drops from #1. So actually, Utopia is tied with Celebrity Beyond as the best cruise experience I've had, probably ever, but certainly since I started this rating system in May of 2022. So I cannot encourage you enough. If you're on the fence, if you're waiting, if you've just not pulled the trigger yet, if you don't know if the mega ship's for you, book one of these 3-day cruises on Utopia of the Seas and try it out, because I was skeptical. I was worried it was going to be too big. I was worried there was going to be too many people. And y'all, I've had what could very well be one of the best cruise experiences I've ever had. I was so excited to make this video. I was so excited in my video showing you around the ship and telling you about the ship. And I just love Utopia of the Seas. I now want to go on one of the bigger ships. I want to go on the Icon series, Icon or Star or Legend. I cannot wait to go on them. And it was just so good to be back on Royal Caribbean again. I hadn't been on Royal Caribbean in over 2 years now. Really great to be back on board. So had a really, really fantastic time. And I cannot recommend it to you enough. It will not be crowded, I promise you that. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it informative. If you did, please go down below, give me a thumbs up. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you on the next adventure.